This is the solution to the study guide exercises in Lesson 6 for the Visual Basic for Absolute Beginner video series. I'm looking on page 11 of the study guide. We have 3 exercises regarding object-oriented programming in classes. The first one is that it asks you to imagine that you've been asked to create an application to keep track of your company's employees. In this exercise, create an employee class that will allow you to create an instance of each employee's name and employee ID as well as their pay rate per hour. Then include a function that will take the input of the number of hours they worked in a given week and perform a simple calculation of the wages that they earned for that week. Create a test harness that will create a few sample employees and calculate their wages, and then display the total wages for all the employees in a message box. Okay. So that sounds simple enough based on what you know from Lesson 6. And like I said in the previous lessons exercise video, object-oriented programming can be a little intimidating, takes a little while for it all to sink in. Just accept it at face value for now. Understand the very most basics of what a class is and that it has properties and methods. Some of the fancier stuff for right now, you don't have to get upset if you don't completely understand that. That's fine. It'll take months if not years for you to really grasp the importance of inheritance and polymorphism and how to apply those into a real-world situation. So we're just getting started. Objects and classes and things are all over the place in the .NET framework, so it's important that you have that basic fundamental knowledge of what an object is, what a class is, what a property is, what a method is, and so on. Okay? So with that little background information in place, let's go ahead and start by creating a new application. We're going to call this Lesson6 Employees. Okay? And first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a class, and we're going to call this the employee class. And our employee class is going to have a couple of public properties and private fields. So we're going to go private. We can do m underscore, which is a more Visual Basic convention of creating fields, also known as member variables. So that's the m and then the underscore. So m underscore employee ID as integer, private m employee name. Let's see what else we need. We need their pay rate. Private m pay rate as, we'll make this a double. Okay. Like property employee ID as integer. Whoops. Sorry. Alright. And then we want to create a public method, calculate pay. And then we're going to pass in the hours worked. We'll do double, so we can do fractions of an hour. And we're going to return this as a double as well. Alright, sorry about that. Trying to talk and type at the same time. Okay, so what we want is a very simple calculation, right? So we're just going to do something simple like this. Hours worked times m pay rate. And that is the extent of the class that we created. It has some private member variables, also known as fields. It has some public properties that expose those private fields. And then it has one method, public function calculate pay, accepts a parameter, hours worked, and it returns a double. We perform our simple calculation, and that should be enough. Now let's go on to the second part of that first exercise, and that was to create a test harness. I'm not sure why I always create a button for these sorts of things, but let's go ahead and do that anyway. And so a test harness can be something as simple as just newing up an instance of the employee. So you can see we'll set the ID equal to, whoops, let's just go 1, 2, 3. So we can be a little creative here. Nah, I think I'll keep it simple. So now we want to calculate what their pay was. So what we'll do, something like this. Okay, and then we'll want to add all those together and display them in a message box, I believe, right? So I'll just take the lazy approach to this. We'll let it do an implicit conversion. And so now that should work. Let's go ahead and run it. Okay, so that would be the amount that we would need to pay those 3 employees for 1 week's worth of work. So that completes the first part of this exercise, exercise number 1. Let's go on to exercise number 2, and it said let's add on to this example, modify the method that you created that does a simple wage calculation by adding another private method that your existing public method will use. The new private method will perform a tax calculation reducing the wages paid to the employee by 15%. Okay. So what we're going to do is go back to our employee class. Now notice that we're not going to change a single thing with our test harness. All we're going to do is change the way that our calculate pay method works by creating a private function calculate tax. Let's do calculate tax. Okay. Okay, so we're just going to take whatever was passed in the pay amount and multiply it by 0.85, so that takes out 15%, right? So what we'll need to do here is call calculate tax, and there's a couple of different ways I could go about doing this, but I'm just going to wrap the current amount and pass that as the input parameter to the calculate tax method. So let's try that out. Let's see if that works. Notice that it's significantly less, 15% less, as a matter of fact. 1460.